Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? Well, the answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. When I started using Anchor to do my podcast, it was so extremely easy that I haven't even bothered to look for another app to use. I love this app. It's the only one I deal with, the only one I even recommend, period. I recommend you get on there ASAP. If you want to start a podcast, this is definitely the place to go. It's easy. You can drive around and record. You can sit in your basement and record. You can do it anywhere. It's fantastic. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast, make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start, anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Adam Rich from the Really Rich Podcast. And listen, I want to talk to you today about why it's so important to blame yourself. Why you should definitely take ownership and accountability for all the mistakes, all the actions, all the bad situations or failures that you've been involved with. It doesn't, listen, first off, there's no good reason to really be blaming somebody else. It might make you feel better at the time. It might make you think that the onus is off of you. You don't have to worry about it. It's not your fault. So somebody should blame, everyone else should blame some other person on it. But the bottom line is, when you blame somebody else, it does two things. A, even if it's not your fault, you should definitely take responsibility and ownership for yourself. Because blaming somebody else, when it does the two things. It does, A, it makes you look like a crybaby. It makes you look like it's like you're coming up with excuses that the reason for failure is always somebody else's fault and all that. But the bigger thing that it does is it shows, like, when you do these kinds of things, when you blame somebody else, nobody gives a shit. At the end of the day, people are going to form their own opinion of what happened, whatever it is that happened, whether it's, you got D's and F's in school, whether you started a business and it failed within 5 years, whether you started a new job and got fired, or even if you've been at a job for a long time and you got fired. The bottom line is, it doesn't matter what happened or whose fault it actually is. When you take responsibility, when you blame yourself, A, it makes it look like you are accountable, like you're able to be accountable and hold yourself to a higher standard. It shows people also that you can be trusted. It builds trust, because if other people see that you're taking the blame, listen, people know what happened. People know what's going on. And even if they don't, they form their own opinion. It doesn't mean you're not going to change it for the most part. So when you convince other people that it's your fault, that you're taking the blame, you build trust with with those people, because they now look at you as somebody who is going to tell the truth. It's easy to blame everyone else. It's easy to come up with just see a problem and come up with somebody else to blame, to point at somebody else. It's easy to always find somebody else to point the finger at. But when you take the blame, even when it's not your fault, it makes it look like you're a mature, responsible, credible person to listen to. Because when things go wrong, you're not pointing at everyone else. You're not making excuses. You're not blaming everyone else. You're not taking yourself out of the responsibility department, if you will, even if you won't. And the reason why it's extra important to do this, even when it's not your fault, is it helps you deep inside to strive to be better. When you're blaming everyone else, you're giving yourself excuses as to why you don't need to get better. You don't need to improve. You don't need to learn anything. It's somebody else's fault. If only you could just get better people around you, this wouldn't happen. Well, it keeps you at your same level. And you know deep down inside whether or not you have room to improve, or if you can improve, or if you should improve. But when you blame everyone else for everything that's going on around you, for all the failures in your life, you give yourself zero reason to really need to improve. And the thing about it is this. I remember when I was young, I've told this story before a couple times, but in case you haven't heard it, I think this is very, very, very relevant and extremely important to a person's psychological growth, to your mental toughness. I really believe this. When I was younger, I went golfing with my dad, and I'll try to keep the story short and sweet, but I went golfing with my dad, and I hit a bad shot. It went behind a tree. And my dad, it was just me and him playing. The game was, it was meaningless. It didn't matter. It was just practice, basically. It was just to go out there and have fun. And I said to my dad, I was like, oh, man, this shot sucks. I'm not going to have a good shot. And he said, well, you can move it out. You can move it away from the tree if you want to give yourself a better shot. And I said, well, what would you do? Would you do that? And he said, no, I would hit right where it's at. And I said, well, why? I was like, we're not on tour. This isn't like a big deal. And he goes, yeah, but how am I ever supposed to get better? He goes, I like challenging myself, basically. I want to hit the tough shots. I want the odds to be stacked against me, and I want to be so fucking good. He didn't swear at me at the time, but he said, I want to be so good that no matter what gets thrown my way, I can defeat it. I can conquer it. Even, he said, and this hit me to this day, this is one of the most important things that I've ever heard in my life. He said, I want to be so good that even when my opponent cheats, they can't stop me. And that fucking, when you're a kid, listen, as an adult, I'm getting goosebumps just telling the fucking story. And I'm well aware of it. This isn't my first time hearing it. And it's so powerful to me because that shows you the type of mental toughness somebody has. If all the odds are stacked against you, if everything's going against you and built to hold you down, and you rise above it, man, that makes for some incredible shit, some incredible storytelling. And it's real. It is so powerful. I have walked with that mentality since that day for everything that I do, even if it's meaningless. I don't give a shit if I'm playing in a backyard volleyball game. I'm out there trying to fucking kill. I'm out there trying to bury people. And I take that with, because I like the challenge now. I like it. Listen, I'm a 36-year-old factory worker that started this podcast. I was 34 basically when I started, 35-ish. I've been doing a little over a year. But anyway, the point is, all the odds are against me. I grew up in a home full of parents, like with my parents that basically taught me to just be a worker, to just go through life and play it safe, to get it's very different, like when it comes to my career, than it was for everything else. My dad basically taught me how to be a mental killer, how to take on criticism, judgment, to take on people talking shit, people doubting you, people believing that you're nothing, that you're worth shit, that you're never going to accomplish anything meaningful, and to conquer all of it. I've always ran with that my whole life, but when it comes on everything except work, when it came to work, listen, my parents came from two homes that were very poor growing up. They didn't have a lot. They didn't have entrepreneurial tendencies. They didn't have that tenacity to want to run your own business. They didn't have that drive. They came from poor beginnings, humble beginnings, if you will. And they thought the best way out is to get a good paying job, save your money, and then one day when you're able to retire, you can live off the money. And that's all I knew growing up. I remember I worked for my uncle when I was 16 years old, my dad's cousin. Now, this is the same, my dad, the mental killer, dude. I'm not bullshitting when I say this. I look at him as the mental Michael Jordan. I don't think anyone on earth has the mindset that he does, but he always had that play it safe attitude when it came to work. And the only reason why is because that's all they knew. His dad came from nothing, moved up here from Alabama when he was young, worked at jobs and just basically scraped by until he died. He scraped by. They didn't have that mindset of go and start a business. It was too risky. And when you come from nothing, it's you either want to take the risks or you want to be safe. And when you're super poor growing up, and you find a good paying job like my dad did at GM, at General Motors, you don't want to take the risks. Why go own a business when at 17, 18 years old, you can go work at GM, which was big money. Especially, he had a kid on the way. He was 17 years old and he got his girlfriend pregnant. And he was just out of high school and he needed a job. He didn't have time to take risks and prepare for a business. His dad had never done anything like that. And so when it got time for him to move on and get a job or make some money, he didn't want to play the risky game. He had a kid on the way, and a family to take care of. So the bottom line is, it was never bred into me to want to go start a business but here's the thing is, I really recently realized that I've always been an entrepreneur at heart, a business owner. I've always had that mindset. I just never had the push or the drive or the guidance to go into it. And so I always kind of just had the mindset of, well, just go be a worker and get a good paying job and save your money. I've always saved money. I've always been really good at that ever since, 14 years old, I think. I've saved and saved and saved. I don't think I've missed 1 week of saving money since then. Maybe 1 or 2, I don't know. But the point is, I've always had that idea to save money and I've never been big on like fancy shit. When I was in high school, I definitely tried to dress nicer and wear cooler shit, because in high school, you're trying to impress all your friends and all the high school kids. And it really doesn't mean anything when looking back, but I did. But I always made sure I was saving money also. I had a lot of friends that weren't saving money. They were just making money to blow it. If they made $100, they spent 101 of it. It's like anything they could do to just buy and buy and buy and buy. And my dad taught me at an early age that that's not smart to do, and he always put it into my head that stop blaming other people for shit. Nobody cares. Nobody's listening. There's people that have compassion and hope that you're doing good, but nobody gives a fuck about your problems. They have their own. It's like when you're in high school and you have a zit and you're like, fuck, I don't want to go to school. I don't want people to see this pimple on my face. This is going to look horrible. People are going to be making fun of me. And then you get to school and nobody gives a shit because they got their own pimples to worry about. So we put things in our head. It's like we build our own prisons. I heard this from a wise man. It's like we build our own prisons for us to live in. We come up with problems that we think other people are paying attention to, and then we cripple ourselves by living in these prisons that we create. And the bottom line is, when you can take all the blame, when you can take away all the judgment, when you don't give a fuck about how other people feel about your losses and failures, you don't live in that prison anymore. You live within your own means. You live within, your own, at your own stake. You live by your own, I don't want to say your own rules. I still follow rules and laws and things like that and policies at work and shit like that. But the point is, I don't give a fuck. If I lose at something, I don't care if somebody's making fun of it. I don't care if I go on Twitter and people are just shitting all over me for something, because they're not involved. They don't know the whole story. People are very quick to judge, and none of it fucking matters. People can judge you all damn day. It's not going to stop you from doing what you're doing. The only thing that stops you is when you get in your own head. If people are shitting on you and then you start believing it, that's what slows you down. But if you keep going and going and going, take your L and keep moving. Like, you got to look at it like a game of basketball. Nobody wins like 100-0. Everybody that plays the game, both teams are putting up points. It's who puts up the more points. I would, instead of winning, 5-0, I'd rather win 100-86. If you give up 86 points, but you put up 100, you're still winning. So it doesn't matter how close the game was. It doesn't matter how you almost lost. What matters is you put up enough points to win. And at the end of the day, people care about the wins and losses. They don't care about how you got them. They don't care about how close it was. It matters if you win. So when you let other people get in your head, it slows you down and it gives you more opportunity to lose than it does to win. And when you blame yourself on everything that you do, it drives you to want to be better. It makes you want to be good. If I hit a bad shot in golf, I didn't think, man, how can I move this out of the way to get a better shot? I used to when I was a little kid, but ever since my dad had taught me that, I love the challenge now. I love when I hit a bad shot because that gives me the opportunity to practice getting out of a bad shot. It gives you practice on how to be great. And that's what it's all about. Did you think Tiger Woods got good at hitting all these crazy shots by never practicing them? No. He put himself in bad positions to try to learn how to get out of them. That's what it's about. And everyone should be doing this. It's very liberating when you can take all the blame and say fuck you to all the judgment and keep pushing, regardless what people are saying. It is so amazing the things you can accomplish when you ignore everyone's bullshit, and when you get a loss, when you do something dumb, or when you do something that sets you back. Learn from it and be better next time. Challenge yourself to get better. Don't try to make excuses for why you lost, or make excuses for why it didn't work out for you this time, or why, it's somebody else's fault as to why I'm failing. Listen, it doesn't matter if it's somebody else's fault for why you're failing. Figure out the fucking game. Figure out the rules. Figure out who's fucking you, and then get around that. Learn how to conquer that. If somebody's punching at you, counterpunch. Learn how to counterpunch. That's what it's about, man. And I'm telling you, it's a very rewarding feeling for yourself and going forward in the rest of your life. If you can ignore all that BS and keep fighting, keep plugging away, take the blame, take the accountability, say, yeah, you know what, I did fuck up, and I know what caused it. I know how to conquer that next time, and I will, and this will not happen again. That's how you succeed in life. Life is a story about losses. It's a story, you're going to lose shit sometimes. You're going to get bad grades. You're going to have bad days at work. You're going to make business decisions that screw you bad. But it teaches you for the next time. It teaches you what to look for. I remember a wise man once said, it's not about what you did right. It's about learning from what you did wrong. It's not about not failing. It's about learning from your failure so you never fail at that again. Don't get burnt by the same fire twice. That's what it's about, man. And it's so rewarding when you can ignore the nonsense and the judgment and the opinions and the blame. If somebody says, oh, he failed at this, he lost money at this, he sucks. Cool. What's that person doing? It's easy to cheer and boo when you're sitting on the sidelines. You notice the players on the field ain't booing. They're not cheering. They're playing the game. They're in it. So I recommend be the player. Be in it. Don't be the cheerleader on the sideline. Don't be the person in the stands that has to sit there and admire the players. Try to be the player. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Just try to get better at your losses so that way you win more than you lose. That's what it's about. That's what it's always going to be about. And the sooner you can start taking the blame, taking accountability, and owning the shit, you can learn what caused it and get better. That's how you win in life, man. I mean, we live in a time right now that, you hear about 8th place trophies and you getting ribbons for everything. I mean, people are getting congratulated for everything. And bottom line is, some people just suck. You know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of times that I've sucked at something in life, and luckily my mom and dad didn't try to sugarcoat it and make me feel better about it. They would tell you, like, my mom would never like beat me down about it. She would never just be like, you suck, you got to get better. But my dad would always give me, it would be like almost a backhanded compliment. He would say, well, yeah, you didn't do good here and all that, but here's what I think you can do to improve this. And if you do this, that kid burned you. That kid he's better. Like my dad wouldn't just bullshit me. He would, he wasn't trying to be an asshole, but at the same time, he would let me know, like, dude, if you want to be better, you got to practice. You got to do better. You have to get consistent. You got to get consistently better at this stuff. You can't just show up once a week and expect everything to just fall into place. And he never, if I got some stupid trophy, like that was a meaningless trophy, he didn't celebrate it. He would go, oh, that's nice. And that was about it. He didn't put him up on his fucking mantle or nothing like that. There was no cheering on half-ass garbage. And I think that stems from that killer mentality that he had. He was just he just always did everything in his power to try to build me up mentally. Even when I didn't believe in myself, I knew, like, I had it in me to just keep going and going and going and going and going. I'm not there yet, but I'll keep going. I'll get there. And I don't know what else to say. Like, I don't say that in an arrogant way. I don't think that I'm better than everyone. I don't think that I'm phenomenal at everything. What I do think is, if there is something, I do honestly believe this. And maybe it's not true, maybe it is, but this is honestly what I believe. I think that if I want to be good at anything, I can be. And it's not me. I don't mean just me. I mean, I think we all can do this. I think you have to believe it, though. I do believe it. That's the thing. Whether anybody else does or not, I don't really care. It doesn't affect me at all. Don't care in the least if you believe that I can accomplish something or not. I believe that if I want to be good at anything, I can be. But I don't think it's just going to happen because I feel like it. I think you got to earn it. I think you got to work at it. I just feel like anything that I try to get good at, I will, as long as I want it bad enough. I sucked horribly at pool when I was in junior high and early high school. By the time I was a senior in high school, I didn't know anybody I played, I would beat. There was one of my best friends was like right on par with me. Me and him would trade back and forth all the time. He was fucking good. He was really good. But I never ran into anybody except my dad. I've never ran into anybody at that time when I was playing at the peak of my fucking life. I never ran into anybody that beat me in pool. And I don't play nearly as much now, so I run into more people that can beat me now. But back then, I played for keeps, dude. And listen, I sucked at one point, and I kept playing and studying and thinking, and I always try to find ways to figure out the game. I look at it as it's not about cheating. It's not about being great. Like, I never feel good cheating and beating somebody. I don't cheat at any, I try not to cheat at literally anything. I can't think of anything that I cheat now in life at all, because I don't think that it doesn't help you as a person. It just doesn't help you grow. Listen, if you cheat and beat me and I don't cheat and I lose, okay, well, I can always take solace in knowing that you cheated to win, or that you're just better than me. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with not being the best at everything. What I'm not okay with is if I beat you, but I had to cheat to do it. I literally think that that's pathetic on myself. I'm not judging anyone else for that. That's me. If I cheat to beat you, I think it's pathetic. I don't even feel good about the win. I don't celebrate that shit. It's just, it's worthless. It's meaningless to win anything if you had to cheat or have handouts given to you. So as soon as you can, in your mind, mentally say, look, I know I'm good enough, or I can be good enough, I just got to practice. I just got to work at it. It's the same thing I felt about the podcast. When I first started, do you know how unbelievably, I don't want to say nervous, what's the right word? Unprepared. That's the best way I can put it. Do you know how unbelievably not prepared I was to start that? Look, I grew up as an only child. I've always had no issue talking in front of people, but I've never liked recording myself talking to people, like especially on camera. When I was younger, I never liked that because I didn't like feeling like the center of attention. I loved making people laugh. I loved making crowds of people think and laugh and enjoy stuff and all that stuff. I loved being the person that could bring crowds of people joy and happiness. I've always loved that. That's never gone away. That's never been a non-thing in my life or whatever. But I didn't like seeing it. I didn't like seeing me because I always felt like, I've been around people that just loved to be the center of attention. Didn't matter what they were saying. They just loved having all eyes on them. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that. I love helping people. I love being involved in community and conversations and crowds of people. I love all that. I just don't like giving off the impression that I'm just trying to seek attention. Because I'm not. I don't like it. I don't like when people do that. Because it's almost like somebody is saying, I'm more important than you are, so everyone sit around and look at me. That's just the feeling I always had when I was younger. But the bottom line is if you're ever trying to help somebody and you're ever trying to teach people things or help people with something, you can't be afraid to be an alpha. You can't be afraid to speak up and be the voice and be the center of attention. You can't be afraid of that kind of shit, because the only way you can rise above, the only way you can affect and influence, good or bad, crowds of people is if you're basically telling them to keep quiet for a minute and listen to what I have to say. Every leader, every great leader has to have that in them. I just didn't like giving off the impression that I was an attention seeker. That's all. I don't mind being a leader. I'm great. I love being that. I love helping people. I love leading people to better places. I just don't like looking like that's like I'm just seeking attention. I don't like that. So it was a struggle for me. So when I first started the podcast and when I started doing some video and shit, I didn't like that. It was just weird for me because I'm used to talking to people. I'm used to speaking to human emotion, to seeing the facial expressions that are on their face, to seeing the body language, to seeing how they're reacting to every word, every syllable, every sentence that I say. I'm used to watching that and feeding off of that. But when you're talking to a fucking camera and you're basically essentially pretending that it's a group of people, it's just different. It's hard to carry on the same message, or it was hard to carry on that same message of importance to a fictional crowd. I can't see how they're reacting. If I say a certain thing and it comes off the wrong way, when you're talking to a crowd of people face to face, you see the reaction on them. You see the way that they're receiving your information. And if you say something that a crowd of people doesn't like, you can immediately say, oh, wait, no, I didn't mean it like that. I'm sorry if it sounded like this. You can say that because you see the reaction. You see it doesn't sound good. But when you're talking to a fucking camera and you say something that gets interpreted wrong and the whole crowd is thinking, damn, fuck that guy, you don't feel that. You don't see that. You know what I mean? So it's different. But I knew that if I ever wanted to get my message out to people, that I had to get over that shit. And I had to be better. Listen, I still to this day will admit all day long that when I started my podcast, I was fucking terrible. And some of you might think, yes, I still am. But the reality is, I know that I'm better today than I was when I started. Now, does that mean that I'm great now? No, not at all. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that I'm much better than I was. All that that means is that I was much more terrible than I am now. It just, you have growth, you have development. But if you think going in that the day one that you're at your fucking peak performance and you're as good as you're going to be lost very quickly. You're going to be failing a lot. You have to accept when you're not good or when you're not as good as you want to be. That doesn't mean you can't improve. It doesn't mean you can't get better. It doesn't mean that you can't have I have the mental attitude to know that I think that if I go against anybody, I can win. Does that mean that I will? No. It doesn't mean that I'm necessarily that doesn't mean I'm guaranteed to win just because I believe in myself. But I don't think there's anybody on the face of the earth that can beat me. Now, if they do beat me, I feel like, okay, that's the standard then. I need to be better. I need to get better than that. That's just how you grow. That's just how you get better. It's not an arrogance thing. It's not I think I'm better than everyone. I just believe in myself. And you have to. If you are a human being in 2019 and you are or any year and you're listening to this, you need to know that you're not perfect. You're not even close. I'm not, you're not, nobody on the face of this earth is. So to pretend that day one you're the best is a joke. It's laughable. But I never start day one thinking I'm the best. I start day one thinking I will be or I could be. And like I said, just because I believe I can be the best doesn't mean I'm going to. You have to understand these kinds of things because when you say them out loud, people think you're arrogant. This is not I think I'm better than everyone thing. This is I believe in myself kind of thing. And I believe that if I try and I keep practicing and I keep getting better, that there's nobody that can fucking stop me in the end. That doesn't mean that I'm there yet. And you need to know that with yourself, whatever it is that you're doing. If you're a singer, if you're a dancer, if you're a basketball player, if you're in the military and you're firing weapons, you might not be the best, but you need to know within yourself that you can be if you want it bad enough. And I believe that with everybody. I believe wholeheartedly that if you think that that you can be the best, if you put in the work, then that's a true statement. You can be the best. Nobody starts day one as the best. You got to earn that shit. It takes practice. It takes time. It takes failures. Nobody knows all the best strategies coming out of the gate. You have to learn what sucks. You have to learn what not to do in order to learn what to do. Michael Jordan said it best. He learned how to win because of all the times he had learned how to lose. When you can't learn how to win until you learn how to lose. And that doesn't mean that you should get good at losing. It means that you need to understand what got you there. You need to understand what got you the loss. And when you can figure out what got you the loss, you can figure out how to combat that. But always blame yourself. Don't be blaming everyone else around you as, well, I didn't, I went on American Idol and I didn't become number one because this judge didn't like the way this looked or this guy. Cool. If that's true, maybe that is true. If that's true and that judge didn't like the way you looked, then maybe you should change your look. Because you're not changing the judges. Those judges are who they are. A wise man once said, the market is always right. I don't get to judge what should be or what is or what isn't. The market does. If the market likes your voice and your singing, you will top the charts. If the market likes your product, you will sell a lot of it. Look at Bill Gates. Nobody knew who the fuck he was when he was starting Microsoft. Then Windows 95 came out. Everybody needed that product because it was so damn good, so superior to everything else. He became a multi-billionaire because everybody wanted his shit. Eminem did not become who he was. He didn't have everything going for him. He came from a super poor fucking beginning, and he was a white guy in a predominantly black industry of rap. And the only other representation that was worth a fuck was Vanilla Ice, who, I'm not trying to shit on Vanilla Ice. He had that one good banger. He had to cut one or two good hits, but he ain't no Eminem. He's not that phenomenal of a rap. I mean, he was good for what he did. But it just, nobody looks at Vanilla Ice to this day and was like, dude, he's top 5, top 10 all time. Nobody says that. So Eminem didn't have much going for him. His fucking skill and his talent and his will to keep going after just failure after failure after failure, he kept going. Tiger Woods, when he came around, there was barely any black golfers. There was certainly no really, really, really good ones. Now there's a bunch of good black golfers. He made it popular. He made people want to try it and get good at it. And when people try it, half the time they love it. Some people don't, some people do. But some people love it so much that they can't breathe without it. They wake up, that's all they want to do is do that. And they keep going and going and going, failure after failure, until they win. Michael Jordan got kicked out of the playoffs, I want to say 7 straight years. It was the 7th or 8th year in the league before he finally won the championship. He got bound. He lost year after year after year. He finally figured out how to win. And when he did, he never lost again, basically. He went to the championship 6 times. He won all 6. But he lost like 7 years straight before that. You guys, he didn't go into the locker room after the games and say, man, if only those Celtics weren't stacked so much, if only those Laker teams weren't so damn good. No, he didn't do that. He thought to himself, all right, I'll show you motherfuckers. I'll show you how it's done. I'll practice every second I'm alive. Every second I'm not asleep. I'm going to be practicing, dribbling, shooting, running. I'm going to do it all until nobody can do it better than me. And that's what you do. You don't blame everyone else around you. You don't blame the opposition. You don't blame the shortcomings of the school system or the jobs or the job industry or sometimes when depressing bad situations happen in our lives, it's easy to blame the other person or the other thing that happened, the other job, the other, whatever. Like for instance, if you're driving down the express, my cousin did this. If you're driving down the expressway and you run out of gas, is it your fucking car's fault? Say your gauge is off, say your gauge isn't working right, is it your gauge's fault for why you ran out of gas? I mean, you can blame the gauge, or you can think to yourself, man, I've had this car for a while. You're going to pay attention to the gas gauge. It's either working or it's not. Now listen, if you just filled your tank up and you know that it's filled to the brim and your gas gauge is on empty, A, I would either go get that fixed, or B, try to, learn to judge your gas gauge. Learn to go by the mileage or something. If you run out of gas on the expressway because you just didn't pay attention, you can't blame your gas gauge. You can't blame the fact that your car is burning gas quicker than it used to. or that gas prices went up, so therefore I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford it the day I should have, and now I ran out of gas. Damn it. Thanks, Obama. Thanks, Trump. You don't blame other people. They don't give a fuck. The bottom line is, when the failures happen, they happen. Whether it's your fault or not, if you blame yourself, you can learn how to get better. And we should all be doing that. We live in a culture now where everyone's trying to look for an easy way out. You look to blame somebody else. Oh, I can't get a good job because the system's broken. Or I can't get a good job because these people aren't hiring, people with my skill level or my lack of education or whatever. Then go get the education. If that's what you're desperate for. If you desperately want to, listen, if I went to a job interview and I had zero schooling, and the guy interviewing me, the guy or girl interviewing me says, listen, we really like you. However, you don't have this schooling that we require. I can blame the job all I want. I can blame the interviewer all I want. The bottom line is, they just said we have a requirement of, we need you to have this degree. You can blame, you can be mad at the job all you want. You can be mad at the owner. You can be mad at the guy interviewing you. You can be mad at the school system. You can be mad at everybody. The bottom line is, they require a degree. You didn't go get one. Don't fucking cry when you don't get the job. Now, if somebody says, hey, I don't like you because you're 5'10" and you have blonde hair and I don't like that, then don't go work there. He just said his requirement. He just said, I don't like 5'10" blonde-haired people. If you're that, what I recommend is, I would say, listen, can we do this interview in 3 days? I'm going to go dye my hair. And if he says, no, too bad, I already know you're blonde, well, then guess what? You're not working there. You can't, crying about it and trying to uproot the system is just a waste of your time and energy. The bottom line is, learn the rules of the game, play within the rules. If you don't like the rules, don't play that game. But to try to get the game eliminated is just, dude, get better. Play a different game. Go apply for a different job. If that guy or girl broke up with you, look at it as their loss. Find somebody better. It may take some time, but it's better than being with somebody who didn't think you're good enough. That's life. Sometimes life doesn't think you're good enough. And instead of crying and whining about it, go get good enough. Stop blaming everyone else. Blame yourself. And it feels so much better in the long run, I'm telling you. Nobody's judgment and opinions and bullshit matters to you. When you're constantly blaming yourself, all the outside noise is irrelevant. You don't need to beat yourself up. That's not the point. It's not about, be so upset that, it ruins you as a human being. What I'm saying is, take the loss, understand what caused it, learn from that, get better, and then now you're more equipped and ready and able to go out there and do what it is you're trying to do. That's what you should be doing, guys. Build your mental toughness. If somebody says, no, you're not good enough, go, okay, I'll show you, and then walk away. That's it. You don't even have to say it. Think it. Just go, okay. Because one day that same person is going to be just climbing back into your life saying, man, I used to be friends with that person. And you know the deal. You know that they didn't like you from day one. You know that they didn't give you the time of day. You know that at one point they didn't think you were good enough. And now that you are good enough, they can't wait to be involved in your life. That's what you should be living for. That's what you should be trying to prove everyone wrong. If the people around you don't think you're good enough, make it your job. Make it your goal in life to prove every fucking one of them wrong. Don't just accept it. Own it. Learn that, yeah, you know what they said was very credible. They did say I wasn't good enough. And maybe I'm not right now, but I will be. And when I am, they'll recognize it. They'll know it. It's so important that you live this way, that you think this way, because this shit never goes away. 20, 30, 40 years from now, there's still going to be people thinking you're not good enough at something. So if you want it bad enough, don't make excuses. Don't be blaming everyone else for why it ain't happening. Do what it takes. Learn the rules of the game and then master the fucking game. That's it. That's what it is. I remember, this is the last story I'm going to tell real quick, and then I'm going to wrap this up because I got to go. But my friend in high school, good buddy of mine, he seen that I had like very little problem talking to girls. I would go up and I would just, if we were out at the bar, at the mall, wherever, if there was a couple girls, I was the guy that they always wanted me to go do the talking. They wanted me to break the ice. And I remember, I don't know, we were out, me and two of my buddies, the one guy and then another one, we were all inseparable. The three of us, we were super tight. We always hung out. And I remember they always were scared. The one guy was a real good-looking guy. All the girls usually liked him, but then he would start talking, and he would start talking about how great he thinks he is, and he would talk about all these things he has and he does and he's good at, and girls don't like. I told him, I was like, girls don't like that. They don't want to hear. Listen, a girl wants you to be interested in them. They don't care about you bragging about yourself. They already think you're good-looking. You don't need to tell them. You don't need to convince them how great you are. They already think you're great. Just keep your mouth shut, pay attention to them, treat them good, and maybe they'll like you. And he just never listened to that. So my one buddy, he said, he goes, go, he's like, oh, I bet you won't go talk to those two girls over there by themselves or by yourself. Like they would want, us to be a group to this, but they thought that I was just, that I had that kind of, I don't know, bravado or whatever, whenever I was around people. And I said, I'll go talk to them by myself. Because the way I looked at it is, what's the worst that can happen? They say they don't like me. They say I'm ugly. I go, okay, then I find somebody else. I'd go talk to somebody else. It's not a big deal. Is the point. There's billions of people in the world. If two of them think I'm ugly, okay, or more. Plenty of them do, right? It doesn't matter. There's plenty of them that don't, is the point. So therefore, if you know that going in, if you know that you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, then if somebody says you're not my cup of tea, you go, oh, okay, you're one of them type. And then you walk away. It's that simple. But they didn't think that I would do that. So they would always challenge me to do silly shit, and they would go, I bet you won't go talk to these two girls. I went up and I talked to the two girls, and I just basically, I went up to them, and I can't remember. This is back when I was like 21 or 22 or something. And I think I walked up basically, and I looked at the two girls, and the first thing I did is I pointed at my buddies. And they were like, oh, what? Like, oh shit, I thought he was like, now they're bringing us into, I wonder what he's saying. Because I was far enough away to where they couldn't hear me. But the girls, I said to them, I go, hey, you see those two guys over there? I said, they told me that you two think I'm ugly as fuck. Is that true? And they both just started laughing. They were like, oh my God, because they weren't expecting that. And I was like, is that true? You guys think I'm ugly as fuck? And they were like, no, you're not. That's silly. And they started laughing. Dude, it broke the ice. We ended up playing pool with these girls all night. And but the point is, I don't have that attitude of, fuck, what do I say? What am I going to do? I look at it like this. If they would have said, yeah, you're ugly as fuck, I would have been like, damn, I didn't know there was two lesbians over here. Or, I would have just made a joke and I would have walked away. I wouldn't. It's nothing serious. It's nothing personal. You're not everybody's cup of tea. You're not going to be. Not everyone that listens to this podcast is going to love it. Not everyone that listens to this episode is going to listen to anything I say and take it seriously. They're going to be like, yeah, fuck you. And they're going to go back to blaming themselves. Some people are going to do that. And I want to get through to everybody, but it's just not going to happen. But you can't be scared to make the leap and get the judgment, because somebody's going to hate you anyway. Somebody's going to think you're ugly anyway. Somebody's going to think you're stupid anyway. So just Be yourself, have confidence in yourself, and if somebody doesn't like that, just know that you're not built for 7.3 billion people in the world. You're built for only so many. But try to get good. And I told my friend before, he asked me, the same guy, he asked me, he goes, you know, how do you like, I guess, I don't want to say get so many girls or whatever, but how do you have how is it no problem? How do you not have any trouble? And he said, because I just don't want to play these games. I'm just tired of playing games with these girls. And I said, well, then you're going to have to, too bad, you have to. And he said, he's like, I'm not playing those games. Like, fuck that. And I said, well, then don't get laid. And I hate to say it so like straightforward and blunt, but that's just the truth. I just told him straight up. I said, well, then don't get laid. And he goes, no, that's not, there's got to be a different way. And I said, look, dude, I said, these girls at this age, the ones you're shooting for, the specific type that he was going after, I said, they play games. That's what they do. And he goes, well, I'm not, fuck that. I shouldn't have to. And I said, you don't have to. I said, you also don't have to get laid. And I said, look, dude, you're complaining about the game. You got it fucked up. And I remember telling him this part of it was back when I was like 17. I was still a kid. And I was like, look, dude, here, you have two options. You either don't play the games because you don't like it and then don't get laid, but then I don't want to hear you cry about it. Or the option B is learn the game, get good at the game, and then outplay them at the game. That's what I do. That's what I did. I don't do it more. I'm fucking married and have a kid now. It's a totally different ballgame. But when I was young and single, that's what I told them. I said, look, dude, I play their game. I find out what kind of game they're playing. I try to learn the rules of the game, and then I try to master the game. I try to be better at the game than they are. That's what I do. And he didn't, at first he didn't like it, but I told him, I said, look, dude, these are your two options. You don't have to like it, but this is the world we live in. This is the game. If you don't like the game, don't fucking play, but I don't want you to cry about it when you're not getting what you want out of the game. You play to win. And so if you play to win and you lose, don't cry about the loss. Get better. That's life. That's every day in life. Don't cry about the game that you're playing in life. Learn the rules of the game that you're playing in life and master the fuck out of it. Don't blame other people. Don't cry when bad things are happening around you because everyone's got bad shit. Nobody cares to hear yours. I mean, they'll say, oh man, that sucks. I'm really sorry to hear that. And then they go back to their own problems. That's the best you're going to get. Start blaming yourself. Learn the fucking game. And then get good at it. It takes time. Nobody said by tomorrow night. If you're listening to this right now, nobody said by tomorrow night you're going to be a master. It ain't happening overnight. But stop beating yourself up over each loss. Every time you fail, stop beating yourself up. Just accept it immediately. Move on. Figure out what it is that you did wrong or what had fucked you. Just figure out what it is that caused you to be in so much pain or misery or suffering or agony or you failure or loss or whatever. And then try to figure out how to counterpunch that. Try to figure out how to counter it so it doesn't happen to you again. Learn what not to do so you can learn what to do. And most fucking importantly, blame yourself. That's it, guys. I love you so much, and I thank you for listening. I really hope this helps somebody. I hope that you take what I say to heart because I fucking mean this. I've lived it my whole life. I've heard about it my whole life. I've watched it my whole life. It's just, this is what it is. And I really, really, really hope that it's sunk in and that it gets through to somebody, even if only fucking one of you. I want it to help. And I want people to get out of this depressed, angry state that they just think that somebody's out to get them. Somebody's going to keep holding them down. Somebody's going to keep attacking. Somebody's going to keep judging. Listen, all of those things are going to happen. All of those things are true. But you can either sit there and be a victim for the rest of your life, or you can learn how to be the victor for the rest of your life. I love you guys so much, and I thank you for listening. If you want to get a hold of me, if you want to leave me a message through the Anchor app, you can do that. If you want to find me on, DM me or leave me private message, whatever, please find me on Instagram. It's Really Rich Podcast. On Twitter is Really Rich Adam. On Snapchat and YouTube is Really Rich. And on LinkedIn, please find me on LinkedIn. It's Adam Rich, the founder and host of the Really Rich Podcast. I love you guys, and I can't wait to talk to you soon. I will, let's do this ASAP. Peace. I'm out of here.